Chair, those in favor say and the contrary nay.
Parliamentarians spent all of last evening approving a never-before-seen budget allocation worth 72.1 trillion shillings for the financial year 2024-25. This is an unprecedented increase of 32% from the 54 trillion shillings the government originally proposed in the budget framework paper tabled in March. It is also far higher than the 52.7 trillion shillings originally approved for the 2023-24 financial year. Taxpayers are expected to bear an additional burden of raising 32 trillion shillings to finance the budget. Worryingly, the government registered slight revenue shortfalls in the 6th month spent during the running financial year, an indicator of the impending challenge. However, the level of the country's indebtedness is projected to worsen in the period, with an additional portion of the budget plan to come from borrowing. At the point in time, borrowers from the local banks are expected to borrow at higher interest rates, given the government plan, in addition to debt refinancing or rollover, to raise 28.7 trillion shillings domestically. The government plans to raise 11 trillion shillings from external financing, of which 9.5 trillion will be from borrowing. Even then, it is indicated that the level of the debt stock, which has in the past oscillated at slightly above 50%, will remain within marginable levels. It is envisaged that the debt stock to GDP will drop to 49% by the end of the current financial year, up from 50.2% in 2022-23 financial year. In less than 2 months, the debt stock is expected to hit 100 trillion shillings, higher than the 92.8 trillion shillings registered by the closure of the 22-23 financial year. The provided figures in the approved budget by Parliament shows by the end of the financial year 2022-23, Uganda nominal GDP was 184 trillion, and by the closure of this financial year, it is expected to have increased to 200 trillion. The government expects that the 72 trillion shillings budget will spur economic growth from the average of 4.7% to 7%, driven by commercial agriculture and industrialization. But what is actually available for government to spend is 37.8 trillion shillings, with the rest of the 34.3 trillion shillings going towards debt servicing and interest payment. Given the adopted program-based budgeting, human capital development, which encompasses health, education and water sector, will, like in the current budget, take a lion's share of the budget. It has been allocated a slight increase of 9.9 trillion shillings from the 9.5 trillion allocated this financial year. Governance and security comes in second with an allocated 9.1 trillion shillings, representing a significant increase from the 7.5 trillion allocated in the 2023-24 financial year. Integrated transport infrastructure services also has a slight increase with an allocated 5.1 trillion shillings away from the 4.4 trillion. Private sector will receive 2 trillion and agro-industrialization a reduced 1.6 trillion from the 1.7 trillion shillings allocated this financial year. Jackson Onyango, NTV.